My name is Caitlin Parks, and I studied abroad in Quito, Ecuador for 2 semesters, so 9 months. And my project or my presentation is about discovering the importance of my voice through studying abroad, specifically in documentary film. And the title is Ir más allá, which is an expression that I will explain later. So ever since I was little, or I would say around middle school age, I really liked making movies, and I liked recreating the things that I saw in movies. I did a little bit of theater, and I always had this desire for knowledge of the unordinary. My early goal was to make people feel some type of emotion, and I've realized that has kind of developed into the goal of telling stories, especially stories of people that don't get as much representation. I wasn't in the film program at Michigan State because I wasn't sure what I wanted, and then I decided to do the documentary studies program. One thing that makes me kind of doubt what I'm doing in documentary film is the fact that I have this privilege in being able to do it, and not a lot of people are able to. There's a privilege when you go into an underprivileged place and you have, a nice video camera, and sometimes people will just film things and leave, and they don't do anything to help the community after. So when I went to Ecuador, I was kind of doubting, what can I film here? What kind of story can I tell? Before this, I had also been doubting a lot of my creative ideas. I had a lot of fear, what can I do with documentary film? What can I do with film overall? And I think I kind of doubted my creativity the older I got, whereas when I was younger, I had all of these ideas just because I wasn't realizing the competition of how many people there were around me until I got to college. So I started my documentary studies. Basically, I did one class sophomore year, and then I studied abroad my junior year. I took the Introduction to Documentary Film class with my teacher, who's on the far right, Armando Salazar Larrea, and he's actually worked on a couple big movies in Ecuador, which is really cool. I didn't realize till I just saw his name in the credits of a big movie that I saw there once. But I was unsure where to start my documentary because I knew that I wanted to film something, and I actually, before I was leaving, was like, well, should I take my camera? And my mom said, well, of course you should, because I was afraid of it getting stolen and things like that. But I decided to bring it, and one thing that really helped me in this class was the specific rules that my teacher gave us. And these weren't so much rules that, he created, but he really helped implement them with the projects that we had to do. Filming with a tripod, making sure that there's a conflict in your story, because sometimes I would have a problem of, I have this cool idea, maybe of something visual, but I don't have a story that goes along with it. Letting the viewer see is an important thing. So many times we have a video camera and we're like, okay, I don't want that person to see me filming, and we just press record for 3 seconds, but that's not enough. You have to let the viewer see things completely, and that's also part of using the tripod and making sure things are still. And actually this day was really awkward because my teacher made us go out and ask people if we could take pictures of them for 20 minutes. And I was like, oh, okay, just kind of walking around. I'm like, this is really awkward, and he had to come up with us. But I think that exercise is really important because in documentary film, if I'm going to tell other people's stories, I have to know how to approach them and ask how I can film them. So the whole concept of ir más allá, I can't think of an exact translation into English, but it's kind of like going further into something. And what I realized through this class is that I had thought before that my voice wasn't important. I grew up in Michigan, I'm an American, I feel like, I don't have any specific characteristics that make me very special. But through that class, everyone has things and life experiences that make them have some kind of voice, different opinions on what they're working on. And so I started thinking about, well, what do I want to convey with my documentary? And also the fact that complete objectiveness, if that's a word, or objectivity, is just impossible with documentary film. You can't simply say, I'm going to film this and not tell any of my opinions. Okay, so I made this documentary that I called El Escape that has to do with, the idea of finding yourself while abroad, some things changed in ways that I didn't expect, like relationships with my family and friends, missing home. I kind of, had this idea, well, life is monotonous, it's always the same. And then when I went to Ecuador, I realized that I missed some of those things that I took for granted in my everyday life. So with this documentary film class, I was filming myself every day. I filmed moments that were difficult for me, like saying goodbye to people that were really close to me, or just things that were kind of hard, but I knew that it was good for the overall documentary. Basically, the whole documentary has to do with the condition of always wanting something else. You always want to be in another place, and that's how I feel. Like I always want to escape somewhere. Since I went a little over time, I'm going to show you the basic preview for the documentary. It's like 30 minutes long right now, so I had to cut it down to like basically a 3-minute thing, and this is definitely not done, but it's just kind of a preview of what I'm trying to convey. Ever since I was younger, I'd always found ways to escape and to create my own adventures. I decided I wanted to go on the longest adventure that I could, and so I decided to study abroad in Quito, Ecuador. What surprised me when I arrived in Ecuador is that I felt comfortable in my new family really quickly. My main support group at home is usually my closest friends, but in Ecuador I noticed that this system was kind of the opposite. But at the same time, I felt kind of like a chameleon, that I was altering myself slightly based on my surroundings. I kind of lived in two different worlds. I was passionate about the new things I was learning, but I also was always wanting to be somewhere else. I was reminded why I was having this experience when I would travel within Ecuador. And there's a certain bond formed between groups who travel together. And this is one aspect of my experience that I'm really happy that I had. Some days were rainy and gray, while others were drenched in sunlight, in the sense of Quito's weather and my experiences. I learned how crucial my relationships are with my family and friends, the inevitability of routine, and the difficulty of acting completely myself and adjusting my behaviors in a new environment. I think that it's part of the human condition to constantly be wanting and wondering about what else is out there. I think that I'll always want to escape, and despite the challenges I faced, I think it will always be worth it.